The keynote address will be delivered by David Wozemba. David Wozemba is a seasoned agribusiness development expert with a deep understanding of ecosystem approaches in agriculture sector development, including input markets, financial inclusion, support industries, textiles and apparel, agro-processing, and creating an enabling environment for flow of innovation and investment. Wozemba has extensive experience in the areas of management, multi-stakeholder engagement, and improving market access. Spanning over 20 years, he's worked to build the capacity of a range of agribusinesses, public institutions, business member organizations, and NGOs extensively throughout East and Southern Africa, well versed in the range of challenges facing smallholder farmers in entering and participating in large-scale supply chains. Wozemba also provides exemplary management and technical leadership, having time again demonstrated his ability to advise and accompany complex teams of international and local partners, cultivating confidence in counterparts and key stakeholders.
Thank you. Suspect you've done justice to my CV. Hopefully I'll not repeat it. So, one possibly that was not mentioned in that, elaborate description of who I am. I am the country director for AGRA, but the one that I want to also point to, though I'm not here in that capacity, is that I'm the chair of the Agriculture Development Partners Group. So AGRA is the chair for this year. So 2024, AGRA is the chair for the Agriculture Development Partners Group. So I am not here in that capacity, unfortunately. So I'll be talking in capacity of country director for AGRA Uganda. All protocols observed. Prof, I am sure I owe you a visit to your office. You've tried to look for me. Unfortunately, we haven't been unable to meet, but I'll get time and we'll meet. The country rep of FAO, Development Partners EU and others, Netherlands, the private sector, and the organizers Mkutano. I'm here to generally shed light on what AGRA, as an African-led institution, proposes as options for climate-smart agriculture. And in reference to the Agriculture Food Systems Forum, for those that have participated in the Agriculture Food Systems Forum, you possibly can attestify what happened in Tanzania last year in September. It's happening this year in Rwanda in September. But all that boils down to what AGRA brings on board in trying to bring together partners and share those wonderful insights. So we as AGRA operate currently in 12 countries in Africa, but by the end of this year or next year, we should be in 15 countries across Africa, and Uganda is one of those countries where we have an office. I want to clearly point out that as AGRA, we have a value proposition, and this sits across the 5 pillars. We call them 5 pillars or 5 C's. Credibility, I think, across Africa, and given that this organization was set up by Dr. Annan, Kofi, former Secretary General, we believe and proud ourselves to be credible in what we think for the African and African institutions, but also for the Africans. So we're here to think together, acknowledging that what we bring on board is to solve the challenges that we all understand are critical in getting the African food systems transformation agenda on board. We do pride ourselves for being catalysts. We do provide quite a unique proposition for catalyzing investments, and this is critical for us. We are proud of being well connected, and we provide opportunities for others to connect. We are cross-sectoral in nature. We provide that capabilities across board, and we are committed to deliver what is strategic in nature. And therefore, you see us work quite closely with the government because we believe there is an opportunity that we can bring these 5 C's to support the key actors within the ecosystem to transform the food system. So why do we believe climate smart agriculture is important? Because it leads to climate change adaptation if well aligned, and you're looking at integrated soils, water, seed management, and other aspects that relate to climate change adaptation. We're looking at sustainable productivity. We're looking at resilience of farmers and systems, and we're looking at regenerating farms and landscape. Those 4 aspects are critical and important for climate smart agriculture. So whatever you do across board, think about the 4 areas: climate change adaptation, sustainable productivity, resilience of farms and systems, and regenerate farms and landscape. What are challenges? And the challenges that we all agree across Africa, cuts across, for us as AGRA, I've analyzed it, and across the 3 critical areas: under farm level, ecosystem level, and micro level. Again, these are already highlighted by these other speakers who have brought this on board, but realize if we're able to segment them across the 3 critical areas, at the farm level, what are those key pain points? What are those barriers? What is stopping the farmers from doing what they are doing? At the ecosystem level and at the macro level. At the macro level, we can be clear that the national policies are largely food systems oriented, and investments are biased towards short-term gains. This has been highlighted around the investments that are short-term in nature. But how do we ensure that what we do tends to be long enough to trigger the changes that we know that systems transformation doesn't come overnight? So if we're going to address that constraint, we must be able to look at investment from not a bias of short-term gains, but look at long-term investments. Inadequate risk management and response capability at the macro level. Limited access to public data and critical tools in making decisions. This for me is very, very important because whatever we do, and it's not anchored on the right data sets, the decisions that we make possibly fall short of what we want to do as an organization. So turning data into use would be a critical role. But where is that data? How organized is that data? Who plays what role in ensuring that this data is, and which tools are available? I've had discussions with Mkutano. I'm currently having discussions with Commonwealth. They have designed some tools, and I have had discussions with the Permanent Secretary and Minister of Trade, Minister of Agriculture. I've had discussions with the ministers in a number of forums on the issues around access to public data and the critical tools. How do we harmonize this in order for us to deliver the impact that we're looking? So what are we expanding and responding to? Emerging challenges. How are we as AGRA at a continental level? What are we doing? And you'll bear with me if I don't make a lot of reference to Uganda because I'm trying to broaden the picture of a continental perspective. We're looking at regenerative agriculture and agro-ecology. So we're looking at business models for regen agriculture to be optimized, developing indicators for assessing regenerative agriculture and resilience, business models for fortified organic fertilizer. Somebody mentioned about biochar as a solution to soil conditioning. I think we know the relevance of biochar. Recently, I had a discussion with the Uganda Development Corporation last week, to be specific, and we're looking at a strategic investment into turning the sugar bagasse into a soil amendment solution, which is biochar. And how do you blend that with the soil, with the fertilizers, to create a unique position that will address some of the soil constraints? We know the depletion of the nutrients levels of the different soils, and therefore the importance of trying to create solutions that are long-lasting, not short-term, but the opportunity for us to leverage on that to reduce the carbon emissions. Biochar plays a critical role in the reduction of carbon emissions. We, as Uganda, seem to be quite low emitters, but if we can convince the world that we have a solution that reduces significantly the carbon emissions, we are spot on. We're looking at carbon markets, validating of bridge fund recommendations in the carbon markets as part of the climate smart solutions. The capacity in developing verifiable carbon monitoring assessment tools in soil health. I've mentioned about biochar as one of the key solutions to reduction of the carbon emissions. If we all recognize the studies that have just been done in Kenya with quite a versatile sugar production and the impact the biochar has had on that, and recognize how we can translate that into what we do in Uganda, would be significantly changing the profile. Community organization, collective action for scale and attracting carbon funds. All you've talked about it. Enhancing diversity of systems, including biodiversity. So we're looking at business models for introducing climate resilience crops. We're looking at varieties. We're also looking at enhancing landscape diversification for resilience and enhancing biodiversity. So all these, emerging solutions that we're trying to propose possibly have a bearing on how we prioritize, how we contribute to the country ambitions. This contributes directly to productive and sustainable farming system. We're reducing climate risks. We are more resilient. We are creating more resilient farmers and systems, but also generating new knowledge and business models. That is what we're looking at. And in this, and you'll bear with me that I'm not too looking at holistic picture of AGRA because we have quite a bigger portfolio. I'm looking at climate smart agriculture in that context. So we're looking at 3 pillars: last mile delivery systems, so increasing access to extension, knowledge, and inputs and other things they've talked about, and digitalization; enhancing resilience and climate change adaptation, through soil health, water management, to absorption and response capacity, through leadership and mainstreaming carbon markets, and regenerate and soil health. All these, as we see it here, we provide a viable solution to actually try and address this through the linkages that we have in different portfolios that we handle at different programs. I'm happy to look at what would success look like, because in all things that we do, we must be able to acknowledge what would success look like. It's not a blanket, application or definition of solutions and say this will work. What would, at the end of the success, look like? So, again, better access to extension, input and output markets and services, demand for smallholder farmer-related inputs, services, and supply output markets, creating new jobs and livelihood, deliver location and crop-specific advice, access via digital information sources, reach at least 1 million of farmers in integrated, sustainable farming technologies and practices. We're looking at how do you reach. The reach is important for all of us because we can talk, but when you're not reaching those numbers, then it's as equally as being very artificial and being theoretical. So at the end of the day, how practical are we in terms of reach? technical capability in key government institutions as last mile. Again, we need to continue talking with the government, because without government, all what we do is our own, and is disconnected from what the government plans are. We can advise the government and we can work together. We're looking at in the smallholder farmers enhancing food and nutrition security. We're talking about higher productivity, more marketable surplus, and greater resilience. That is one of the areas we will measure our success. Making farming as a business more attractive to youth by reducing drudgery and risk and increasing yield and incomes. The benefit from access to finance and technical assistance to de-risk developments, creating job opportunities at scale, and then landscape transformation by collective and coordinated action. Landscape transformation is critical in Uganda, and we know how some of the regions are getting degraded very fast for a number of reasons, and we know how if we have coordinated action, we can reverse this trend. Benefits from increased biodiversity, and this includes the pollinators and diversity of crops. We know how we can be destructive if we don't acknowledge the importance of the pollinators. Some of us just do it for the sake, but we recognize the ecosystem that we operate in. There are some that play a significant role, and pollinators play an important role. More effective sequencer of carbon and resilience of climate change, elements that will reduce the carbon emissions. We at AGRA are looking at establish itself as we're looking at being a thoughtful leader within the system. How do we collaborate, among us, each of us in this room and outside the room, to bring together ideas that we can all, acknowledge that will make a difference. We are not here to compete. We are here to collaborate and deliver the impact. Utilize this evidence to facilitate learning within the systems that we want to change, and then make significant policy investment shifts in favor of climate change actions. We're working very, very closely with the government. I spend possibly half of my time trying to engage with the government at different levels, and I'm proud that we're making headway in some of the areas. Again, we have targets that we set for Africa, but that is partly our own internal. But our goal is really generally leading to sustainability, or sustainable, productive, and resilient farming systems, contributing to increased food security, work opportunities for smallholder farmers, including young men and women. Now, I've been told to talk a little around what we do within the African Food Systems Forum. For those that are not aware, it used to be called AGRF. The name has changed to African Food Systems Forum for the reason being that, the funders of that, program feel there's need to acknowledge that this is a forum that is important to actually transform the food systems in Africa. And by bringing together all of us in one room, 5,000 plus individuals and companies and organizations and governments, we make a difference in terms of pronouncements that we want to go out there. And therefore, this forum is critical, and I encourage those that want to participate effectively in Rwanda this year, and hopefully next year we'll go to another country. If all goes well and Uganda is good to request for hosting of that forum, it will be good to go. But that depends on how we view that forum, how important it is in the converging of ideas and how we deliver them. But it all looks at from production, storage, processing, markets, and food waste, food waste and nutrition. Now, under that whole linear flow. We know that, we at AGRA and with those development partners and the governments that we work with, we are all interested in strengthening the production systems. So what do we bring on board that is new in that discussion during the African Food Systems Forum to, one, share those lessons. And I'll be proud if we, as Ugandan team, share some lessons, and a number of colleagues from different organizations do participate, or through facilitating the private sector to be part of showing the innovations that we have that may deliver the impact at continental level and at global level. Again, we have the realities with us, but we have to be proactive. If we don't, then we're left behind on storage and distribution. Again, those are all aspects that we all value. Which innovations do we bring on board that we reflect that as a country we're making progress in trying to align to the changes that are required in order for us to be competitive in different markets, both domestic and external. And then processing and packaging, critical for us, because whatever we do in country, both for domestic consumption, regional consumption, without proper packaging, without proper processes that lead to quality and standards, we are as equally as weak and we're not competitive. The market and trade, we know we've been quite struggling with barriers to access some of the markets, the non-tariff barriers, which are hindering us to perform better in these markets. So we look forward to making sure that these solutions are addressed in context of where are we as a country, where are we as a region, and how do we take this forward? Food waste and nutrition. As AGRA, we happy to, and for those that were in COP28, the Global Climate Fund, for the first time, gave us $80 million to actually, in 5 countries in Africa, to actually implement a reduction in food waste in Africa. And a number of you, private sector actors, I would encourage, we work together to develop impactful solutions. It's targeting private sector and how do we develop, solutions that will lead to food reduction in food loss. And Uganda is one of those participating countries. We're glad that the president signed on that protocol, and it was acknowledged under the COP28 last year. So the funds will be delivered this year, and for those that have interest, we can work with you in looking at impactful solutions that will reduce food loss across the value chain. So I am glad that we're moving closer to seeing solutions as a programs, as AGRA, but also recognize that with the convening power, with the power partnerships, we are going to make headway. And in this forum, it's important to recognize that we don't stand alone, we stand with all of you, and we want to create lasting solutions. I look forward to engaging further with a number of you to deliver the impact that is required, and also send our voices to the government. I interact as, I have a privilege to being the chair, to be of the agricultural development partners, to be partly involved in a number of forums that are high level. So any of the solutions that we want to push will be, more. Lastly, is to acknowledge that I have received the draft strategic direction for NDP4, and therefore we as AGRA and all the development partners working with the government will be seeking for feedback in the form of a workshop that may take place soon. So if you have been requested to participate in that meeting, that'll be good. But it is again to shape the draft that has been approved by the government, but also have our input and the voices recognized in the NDP4. So we have the roadmap, and we're happy to work with you moving forward. Thank you. God bless you.